All right, Aurora Borealis. You might have seen us painting the aurora a couple of weeks ago. And so the students want to know how to finish their paintings and add in their trees. So here's a bunch that I've started that I haven't finished yet. Here's one I'm almost done. So one of the first things we need to decide is which way we want to orient our painting. So I decided I wanted it this way, but you could turn it and look at it that way and say, you know, I like that better, or I like it this way. I decided that I wanted it this way here. I'm going to continue working on this painting right here. So this one, I decided I wanted a lake in the background and some distant trees, and a grouping of trees here. And notice something that I did here. You see the aurora is coming like this, right? And it's coming down and across here. And if I don't have a clump of trees here, my eye, the viewer's eye, would come and just leave the edge right off the side of the page. So we want an element that will stop the eye, bring it down and across the lake and the distant trees here, and then continue to circle. So oftentimes in a painting like this, you're going to want to look to see, where do I need to keep the eye on the page and have a vertical element, maybe some foreground trees there. In this painting, I'd like to have some distant trees. So one of the things I sometimes do, maybe put a piece of tracing paper and decide on a composition with pencil drawing. And sometimes what I do is I look to see what could I do just with the handles of my brushes, pretending they're trees, to see, you know, what would look good here. I also might want to see, should I crop some of this off? Would my painting look better if I stopped it? Like maybe, I don't really like these stripes here, so I'm wondering if maybe I need to bring it in a bit. In fact, that might look better, you know, so that's something I have to decide. And what I decided to do with this one, you see this big pink swoosh here. I wanted to come into that swoosh of light and make a big, more sort of focal tree here to balance the strength of the aurora. Really got some nice stuff happening here that I want to see. So I've got a bit of a distant shore there, clump of trees here, and then a mid-ground clump. That might be nice to see a bit more of this. And I've got a few pencil strokes here you can see, right, of where I'm planting the trees. And that's what I suggest you do, drawing an outline around them or just the vertical strokes of the trees. Make sure that we've got uneven spacing of those trees, right? Trees do not grow in perfectly spaced rows, right? So one way to visualize where you want these things in a quick way is just using your brush handles, right? So I want something taller here. No, shorter seems to look better. Yes. Okay, so what I would want to do, I'm going to want to use really strong mixtures of paint. Watercolor should always be integrated into the page, not sitting on top. So paint needs to be fluid, but in this case, we want it to read as a silhouette. It needs to be as strong as it can, but without being so thick or saturated that we see it shiny sitting on top of the page. It needs to be able to absorb into the fibers of the page so it looks like it's just dyed into the paper. So indigo blue, Prussian blue, dioxazine violet, these are all good staining colors that are very strong and appropriate to use for something like this. Now what I did when I was painting before, you can see that I wasn't sure what I was going to do here, and so I blended away the edge with some clean water so that I wouldn't have a hard line, because anytime you stop the paint, you see that edge. So maybe what I need to do here is just finish that background now that I've come back to this. So I've got a little bit of violet that I was painting here before. So I'm just gonna finish what I was doing with these background trees. And what I'm going to do this time, I don't want to have a hard line here, so I'm going to wash that away, going over on top, and maybe create a little bit of a sense of a layered effect here. That would be okay. And should I have that come all the way down to the bottom or have a lake? I think it's going to look better if it's darker. I don't think it's going to look good to have the lake showing there. Bring it down to the bottom. So there was a few students who missed this class. So now you're gonna be able to catch up. And oh, we ran out of time too. So I'm just doing a Google Hangout lesson for the students because, oh, we got so busy painting our meadow. You might have been watching that we ran out of time to finish our Aurora painting. So one of the things I want to do whenever I'm painting the silhouettes like this, so I want to keep that wet edge moving. I need to be on a dry page so I can get the control of the edge of these trees. And I want to be mindful that my trees are not clumping together. I don't want them to just look like they're in a perfect straight row. I do want it to look like it's a natural growth of different spaces and sizes and shapes. I like to blend different colors together so it doesn't look too static. I personally don't like using black. I find it very stagnant and dull, especially in watercolor paint. I don't mind black in acrylic and oil necessarily because it's so rich with the shine of the paint. But I find in watercolor it dries really dull and it's not very satisfying. So I like to use really strong dark colors like neutral tint, indigo blue. What I recommend you do is that you look, what do trees look like? We don't know what they look like. We think we do, we don't. There's one time some students of mine, I asked them to draw a maple leaf from memory. And you know, we had, I don't know, 15 students in the class and not a single one of them really knew what a maple leaf looked like. And we live in Canada where the maple leaf is on the Toronto Maple Leafs jersey and on our flag, and they grow everywhere. We make maple syrup, and nobody could draw a maple leaf from memory. So neither can we paint a coniferous tree from memory then. What you'll end up getting is like Christmas tree symbols. And so if you're going to do this, go and look. So one of the things you see what I'm doing here, I'm trying to keep that wet edge moving, right? So, because every time I stop and start, when I've got the paint this thick, I see that edge. So I'm going down, and now here I'm going to go back up. I'm going to keep this wet edge moving. And if you ever look at some photos, or be out at the forest at night like this, you're going to see that all of the branches kind of clumped together and all these layered trees on top of each other. You can't see the separation of the trees near the bottom where more and more of them are on top of each other, bigger branches. So we want to get sort of keep this wet edge moving. Don't just draw one tree and another tree. Get the wet paint blended together at the bottom, and then as you come up to the top of the trees, then having some separation in the branches and allowing some sky to poke through. I'm right-handed, so I'm starting at the left side and working across to the right. If you're left-handed, you're going to do the opposite so you don't smear your work. I get this one color on, and I'm going to drop in another color while it's wet, so that I have a little bit of variety and interest. It's not just dull and boring. And one of the things you'll notice about the boreal forest is that these trees are very, they're kind of scraggly. They grow very unevenly. They're quite thin. They're not at all symmetrical, perfect trees. So if you're going to be doing this from a photo, look at a photo. I know for a lot of us, we don't have access to the boreal forest. That'd be great, and plus be kind of cold, but you could look out your window, do it. So whether you're working from real life or from a photo, do look carefully either way at the growth pattern of trees. If you want to learn more about how to paint trees, I did a workshop for a landscape student who wanted to be able to do his illustrations of his designs with watercolor. And you can learn more about how to paint trees and shrubs, etc., effectively by watching that video. So one of the things I want you to notice when you watch that video and as you're watching me paint here is that we don't, I'm always frustrated when I see what happens. People seem to notice the sideways growth of a coniferous tree. And they forget to notice that branches come forward and tilt down and branches go backward and tilt up. It's not just the sideways branches that we see. And then in boreal forests, the trees are very, like I said, very uneven in how they grow. And quite thin. So something to make note of and look carefully at. So I'm using right now a mixture of Prussian blue and indigo, and then dropping in a bit of Dachstein violet. I actually normally like to have the 3 colors. I just don't have them mixed up right now. I just am finishing up a class tonight here. I'm using a number 4 sable watercolor brush. This one happens to be a series 7 from Winsor & Newton. There's lots of great brands. I do prefer sable. I do find them better, but you can buy a good quality synthetic brush and have it do a good job for you as well. So brush, paint the stem. I want to get this bottom in here before that dries. I'm looking for an even sort of flowing base here. I don't want abrupt stops and starts. I don't want to see an edge that has dried. I want to avoid blooming. So I try to keep that kind of go up, and then the next time down, I try to just keep that wet edge moving however I can do that. It depends how fast you can paint. And keeping in mind too that there'll be some trees in behind too. It's not just a row of trees, right? There's many trees on top of each other, right? That's why it really helps to look at photos and go out and look at the forest. How does it grow? And using a few different colors to, even though it is just a silhouette, it probably does just look black. That's boring. So what can you do to make that look more interesting, right? And kind of wiggle your brush around. Notice that branches kind of clump together in the middle of it. Notice how there'll be trees kind of like tucked in behind each other, many layers. And get a sense of how tall should that next one be. Do I want it down here or do I want it up there? I think I could use a little variety here. So I'm thinking I need a taller tree. If you're not sure what you should do, then you know, do a sketch first. Find a bunch of reference photos. I'll try to get that to integrate here. Let's see what's happening there. Hey? Let's see if I can get you a little bit more onto that. Maybe we'll see. I wonder if I get closer. I wish I could get closer. Where are we here? Let's see. So how tall? Maybe here? What do you think? My brush has a bit too much moisture in it, so I just wiped it on the side there. So I didn't have a good point. So I often like to wipe my brush on the edge, just to, so you can kind of see how I'm pulling and then kind of flicking my brush to get uneven lines to stand for. And I let my brush kind of skip sometimes too. And the branches kind of clump together in the middle. And then we have branches angling down and back. Then we have the sideways ones. Now, while that's still wet, I want to drop another color into it. So a little bit of violet to run in with that. Not everywhere, just a few spots. Keep that wet edge moving. I'm going to get down here because that's starting to dry and just start to fill that in down there a bit. I kind of like some of that misty quality in behind there. I'm going to allow some of that to show. And you can make the trees as detailed or as loose and brush strokey as it suits your personality and your style, right? But at least still look at the growth pattern of the trees. All right, so there we go. And there's our finished painting. Now, a lot of my students, this is the first painting they've ever done. We do this wet wash in the background. So you really learn to let go and let the water flow. And then this the opposite approach of painting on the dry page, right? Exactly. You put the two together, put that in a frame, and oh my gosh, it looks great. And I've had a lot of students actually frame their first painting ever and love it. It's such a, if you want to kind of try out watercolor, this is a great thing to try. Oh, look, there's still some masking fluid on here. Look at this. I take off the masking fluid. Look at how that just adds a sparkle. Oh, look, there's a shooting star in this one. So that was put on with masking fluid, with just spattering with a toothbrush and a palette knife. So dipping in the masking fluid and just spritzing on a few bits of masking fluid to hold the white of the page. And when you take that off, look at the sparkle that creates in the painting. It's really beautiful. So it'll be great when this one gets finished. I really love that sky. So this method, we dunked the whole page in the water. It was wet front and back. We just stuck it onto a piece of plexiglass. The wetness just sort of suction fits it down. You can paint that really wet, really quick, loose strokes, let it dry, and then on the dry page, painting in those trees. Working if you're right-handed from left to right, or if you're left-handed from right to left, and just keep that wet edge moving across, and it should go. So it makes a really nice painting, and what I love is it really celebrates the water flow and that you have not total control. It's just roughly guiding and allowing the water to do the work for you. So it's so much fun, so beautiful. Maybe you could try underwater scenes. You could try cloud nebula or space scenes. Imagine the great stuff you could do with this. Yeah, it's really fun. So thanks for watching. I'm Karen Kestelut, known as the Admissions Insider, because 100% of my students get accepted into the best arts and design colleges. Some of them even get scholarships. But lots of people just like to take lessons with me, just to learn how to paint, just for the joy of painting and drawing. And if you want to be part of some hands-on learning this summer, we've got a summer camp for students. So here's what we painted tonight. So July 26th to August 9th, we got 2 weeks of classes, all day and all evening, all kinds of different things, and we're going to be telling you more about that really soon. And then that come out really pretty. Love that. So, happy painting, everybody.